book of Syrach, chapter 9. Love thou not jealously the woman of thy bosom, lest she show on thee the malice of evil doctrine. Give thou not to a woman the power of thy soul, lest she enter in thy virtue, and thou be shent. Behold thou not a woman of many wills, lest peradventure thou fall into the snares of her. Verse 4. Be thou not customable with a danceress, neither hear thou her, lest peradventure thou perish in the speedy work of her. Verse 5. Behold thou not a virgin, lest peradventure thou be slandered in the fairness of her. Verse 6. Give not thy soul to whores in anything, lest thou lease thee and thy soul and thine heritage. Verse 7. Neither thou behold about in the lannis of the city, neither err thou in the large streets thereof. Verse 8. Turn away thy face from a woman well arrayed, and behold thou not about the fairness of other. Verse 9. Many men had perished for the fairness of a woman, and every covetous brenneth and high as fire. Verse 10. Each woman which is an whore, either customable to fornication, shall be defiled as a fen in the way. Verse 11. Many men wondering on the fairness of an alien woman were made reprovable. For why, the speech of her burneth, and high as fire. Verse 12. Sit thou not in any manner with an alien woman, neither rest thou with her on a bed. Verse 13. And yangle thou not with her in wine, lest peradventure thine heart bow into her, and thou fall into perdition by thy blood. Verse 14. Forsake thou not an old friend, for a new friend shall not be like him. Verse 15. New wine is a new friend, it shall wax old, and thou shalt drink it with sweetness. Verse 16. Covet thou not the glory and riches of a sinner, for thou knowest what destroying of him shall come. Verse 17. The wrong of unjust men please not thee, and wite thou that a wicked man shall not please till to hells. Verse 18. Be thou far from a man that hath power to slay, and thou shalt not have suspicion of the dread of death. Verse 19. And if thou nayest to him, neither thou do any trespass, lest peradventure he take away thy life. Verse 20. Know thou the coming of death, for thou shalt enter into the midst of snares, and thou shalt go on the armors of them that sorrowen. Verse 21. By thy virtue keep thee from thy neighbor, and treat thou with wise men and prudent men. Verse 22. Just men be guests, either meet fairest to thee, and glorying be to thee in the dread of God. Verse 23. And the thought of God be to thee in wit, and all thy telling be in the heasts of the highest. Verse 24. Work shall be praised in the hand of crafty men, and the prince of the people in the wisdom of his word. For soweth in the wit of elder men a word. Verse 25. A man, a yangler, is dreadful in his city, and a foolhardy man in his word shall be hateful. So ends chapter 9 of the book
of Syrach.